back to my channel. So I really meant to get up early today and start on this project because I probably shouldn't be talking with a knife. I really wanted to like start on this dress because we're starting on the last dress of this wedding series. So this is going to be the most advanced dress. It's going to be very pretty, but it's gonna take a lot of time. So I wanted to get up at like, you know, 11, which is early for me. And it's currently 2 p.m. So that's just kind of the day I'm having. So I figured I would talk you guys through the dress process while I'm making myself breakfast. But so my plan for this dress is it's going to be really pretty. It's going to be kind of more of a bustier style top, which I think is very popular with like wedding dresses. So I think that's going to be really pretty. And then it's gonna have like these like big off the shoulder like sheer sleeves. They're gonna be like gathered. It's gonna be really pretty. And then I also bought some lace for this dress that we're going to use as kind of like appliques. I feel like there was something else I was gonna say too. Oh yeah, and it's gonna be kind of more of like a big ball gown type of dress. So it's going to be like very big, very princessy, very dramatic. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be really nice. So let me take you guys to go see the fabric. So here is the fabric we're going to be using for this dress. So for our like lining fabric, we're going to be using this charmeuse satin. This is like the same one we've been using for a lot of the other wedding dresses, and I have 7 yards of this. And this fabric along with this one are from Fabric Wholesale Direct. They're not sponsored, but if they wanted to sponsor me, it's honestly about time. And then the other fabric I'm going to show you guys is from Joann's. But first we're going to need 7 yards of the charmeuse satin. And then this fabric is a sheer voile. And I also got 7 yards of this one. But this fabric is actually 118 inches wide instead of the usual 60. So there's a lot more fabric to work with than just the regular 7 yards. And then the last fabric is this really pretty lace fabric. And again, this is from Joann's and I got 1 yard of this. And I'm just planning to cut out some of these really pretty patterns. Thanks, Baze. And then we're going to be like appliquing them onto the dress, which I think will be really pretty. And I mean, just look at this lace. It is so pretty. And so my goal today is just to cut out all of my pattern pieces because honestly, drafting and cutting out all of my pieces takes a lot longer than I always think it's going to. So we should probably get started. I did manage to cut out all of my pattern pieces on the first day, a big yay. And here are all of their measurements. So starting off, here are the cut pieces for the front of the bodice. And for this project, we're going to be doing a lot of layering to get the look that we want. So there's going to be a lot of these pieces. Next up is the front piece, and this is where the cups are going to attach to. And then this piece is the back piece, and because this dress is a lace up, this is the only back piece we need, but we're just going to be cutting a whole bunch of them out. And then this right here is the sleeve piece, and we're just cutting 2 out of the voile for this piece. And then these skirts were too big to fit into frame, so here is just a little drawing of what those should be looking like. So this right here is the front piece, and we're just cutting 1 of these out. And here is the back skirt piece, and this one is much smaller than the front skirt because both of the seams are going to be more towards the back. And this one also has a 9-inch slit down the back so that we have a place for the zipper later. And then this skirt here is the skirt overlay. So this is the big sheer skirt that's going to go over top of the last one. And this is a full circle skirt that I was able to cut on my extra wide sheer fabric. But you could also cut this into multiple pieces and make it fit on whatever kind of fabric you have. And again, this one is also going to have a 9-inch slit down the very back. And then after I cut out all of my pattern pieces, I actually took all of the remaining lace fabric that I had, and I just started cutting it into shapes that I think I would like for appliques. And I did that until I had no more lace left. And then I decided to deal with the appliques now instead of later because I always leave it for the end and it's a lot more difficult to do it then. So I messed around with a few different ways that I could use the appliques. This here I was kind of playing with putting them at the bottom, but I actually decided to put them coming from the waist of the dress. So I kind of made a band all the way around and then did some kind of falling down from the waist. But you could really put them wherever you want. Hi. It's so cute, watch out. So I just finished pinning all of my little cutouts around the waist of the skirt. And I left like some space from the very top so that I'll be able to ruffle it pretty easily. And now I think I don't usually start on the skirt, but I kind of want to get this out of the way. So I'm going to stitch all of these on with my machine using my embroidery foot and just like loosely following the shape of all of these pieces. And this is going to take quite a while, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to do now rather than later. So once all of the appliques were attached, I started working on the bodice as I normally would. And like I said, because we are working with so many layers, the first step is to just put all of the layers together. So as I was showing you there, I already went ahead and fused my interfacing to half of my satin pieces. And then the way the rest of the layering is going to work is we're going to take our remaining satin layers and we're going to be putting one layer of the voile over top. And then we're going to be adding one layer of the lace and pinning those layers together. And you're going to want to use a lot of pins because we really want this to lay as flat as possible. And then we're just going to use a basting stitch all around all of the bodice pieces to keep all these layers together. And a basting stitch is just the longest stitch length on your machine, and this is just a temporary stitch. It does not have to be pretty because if any of these stitches are showing, we're just going to pull them out later in the process. The most important thing is just making sure that everything is laying nice and flat. And now you should have half of the bodice pieces fused to our interfacing and the other half basted with lace. So now we're going to be taking our two cut pieces and around the little curved edge, those pieces are going to go together pretty side, and we're going to sew them across that edge. And for most of these steps, we're going to be doing those on the lace layers and then again on the interfacing layers. So right now we're basically making two bodices, one for the outside and one for the lining. I then went ahead and pinned my cuffs around the curve of the front piece because I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted the placement to be, but I tried it on a few times and figured this was the best placement for me. So then I went ahead and cut those pieces so that they would flow into each other nicely, and then made those exact edits on the other pieces so that everything would be nice and the same. Then you can go ahead and pin the cuffs back into the bodice. And again, we're going to be doing this with both the lace and the interfacing layers. And once those are pinned, you can go ahead and just sew those right around that curve. Now we're going to bring in the back pieces, And you want the larger side of that slope to connect to the sides of the front. So we're just going to pin those in place and then just put a straight stitch down that edge. And I'm not really showing it, but on most of these pieces, I am also zigzagging all of my edges because once again, my serger is broken. So that just helps to keep all of the raw edges from fraying. And now our bodices are mostly together, but before we finish them up, we're going to take some ribbon and we're just going to fold it over and cut it into these small little sections. And then I'm just using a lighter to kind of burn the two edges together. Make sure you're really careful when you're doing this. You don't want to hurt your fingers. But this will keep the edges together so that it creates a little loop. And that is what we're going to use to do our lace up back. So I believe I used a total of 10 of these pieces, 5 down each back. But you could really use as many or as few as you want. And then I'm just taking those little loops and pinning them to the edge of the back that we had just sewn. You want to make sure that the folded edge of the loop is facing in towards the bodice so that when we sew it, it folds back out. And then we're just going to evenly space them on both sides, making sure to leave room at the top and bottom so we don't hit the loops while we're sewing these pieces together. And then we're just going to pin both layers of our bodice and sew all the way across the top edges and the sides. And now the bodice is pretty close to being done. There's just a few more little things that we have to do. So to give the whole bodice a little bit more structure, I'm going to be taking some thin boning that I got off of Amazon. I will link it in the description of this video. And for the placement of the boning, I decided to put one down the center, one down the side, one down the back, and then one underneath the bust on either side. And so to make the channels, we're just going to do 2 parallel top stitches where we want the boning to go. And we want these to be slightly wider than our boning so that we can just slide it right into these channels. And now to actually cut the boning, you just want to cut it about 1/2 inch smaller than where you want to put it so that we won't be catching it when we attach the skirt to the bodice. And then we're also going to round out the top and bottom edges so that it won't poke through our fabric. And then you can just go ahead and insert it into all of these channels. And that's going to give the bodice a lot more structure and prevent it from kind of like folding over and wrinkling as we wear it. And now it's time to work on the sleeves. And so down the 25-inch side, we're going to be folding over the top edge for 1.5 inches. And I just put a basting stitch across this to hold it in place for the next step. Because now we're going to be taking some elastic and we're going to stitch this down with a zigzag stitch right across where we put that basting stitch, but we want to stretch it as we're sewing it so that when it relaxes, it's going to create these really pretty gathers across this edge. And so I'm going to do 2 more rows of that, one about 18.5 inches away from the bottom edge, and then we're going to do another one about 5 inches away from the bottom edge. And then we should have these 3 really pretty gathers. And we're just going to fold this piece in half and put a straight stitch all along that edge to connect either half of the sleeve. And if you need to make it a little bit tighter in some areas, you can just go in a little bit more. because we don't want these to be too tight around our arms. We want them tight enough so that they are going to stay in place when we wear it. And then the last little thing is I just put a hem around the bottom edge of the sleeve. You can leave this a little bit longer or shorter if you want to. And then I also added some more of the appliques around the top edge. And then I just made a second one of these. And now to actually attach them to the bodice, we're just going to take the top edge that we sewed first, and we're going to pin it from the corner of the cup to the side seam of the bodice. And we're just going to stitch the sleeves on directly in place. And that is it for the bodice. So now we can actually get started on the skirts. So we're going to start off with the front lining skirt, and we're just going to lay it out, and we're going to take the back lining skirt and we're going to sew these pieces together down their side seams. And it might be a little bit funny, like I said, because the front skirt is going to be a lot wider than the back, but that is just so that these seams are both towards the back of the skirt. And we're going to sew these pieces together all the way down. Then we can take our sheer skirt, and we want this piece to be ruffled. So I'm going to put 2 parallel basting stitches all across the top edge of this piece. And now to put it all together, we're first going to turn the bodice to the wrong side, and we're going to take the lining skirt, and I marked the center of it so that we can match that up with the center of the bodice. And we're actually going to be putting these pieces wrong sides together first. And so from the center, we're just going to continue pinning it all the way to the edges of the bodice, and it should extend about an inch or two past the bodice on either side. And this is because we are going to be lacing it up, and we want the skirt to attach but leave space for the lace up. So I'm just basting that piece in place. And then we're going to turn the bodice to the pretty side out, and we're going to take the sheer skirt and put these pieces pretty side to pretty side. And again, I'm just pinning them in the center first and then matching up the ends so that we know where we want to gather it up. And then I'm going to pull on 2 of the basting stitches that are on the same side of the fabric. And this is going to start gathering it all up. And we're going to gather it until it fits into the space that we pinned out. Make sure that all of our ruffles are spaced evenly, and we're just going to pin them all in place. And once that's all pinned, we can go ahead and sew this together with a regular straight stitch. And then when you turn it right side out, the waist seam should be completely covered. And then if you are happy with the way that the skirt came out, you can go ahead and take out all of those extra basting stitches that we put in to hold all the gathers. And this seam is pretty thick, so this is one you are definitely going to want to put a zigzag stitch across and make sure we trim it really small. But that is fully going to encase our waist seam. And now I'm going to just be putting an invisible zipper down the back where it extended past the bodice. And before you do this, you of course want to make sure that you try it on and mark out where it should go for you. And then you can just go ahead and insert the invisible zipper down the back. And now the very last thing to do on this dress is to just add a hem all across the satin layer and the voile layer. And this skirt is so big, this felt like it took literal years off my life, but it was definitely worth it because I absolutely love how this dress turned out and I cannot wait to show you guys. I think this dress did definitely capture those like very ethereal princess vibe wedding that I feel like is really popular nowadays, and I kept saying that the last one was like my favorite, but I think out of all 4 of the dresses that I made, I think this one is definitely my favorite. I'm a big sucker for sleeves, and I think that it's just so dreamy and so romantic, and this voile just flows so beautifully in the wind. It was so much fun to twirl in it and just like throw it everywhere. It was so much fun. And I'm really happy with how the lace turned out too. I always get nervous working with appliques, but I really should do it more often because I think that it is just so beautiful and really takes it up a notch. But yeah, this is the last wedding dress of this mini series. So I really hope you guys liked it. I will hopefully try to get around to making patterns for these dresses fairly soon. And this might be the last sewing tutorial I do for a minute, but I do have some really big plans for this channel, so I hope you guys stay tuned, and I will see you guys later. Bye!